What's going on?
G'day. Here we are and kicking straight into it. Of course, if you find value in any of these videos and the things that we're posting, please hit that subscribe button. Come and join us over at unitytradinggroup.com. Getting into another BTC update where we're using tools like this, Steamroller, all of our custom indicators, which of course you can find over at it. And come and join us over in the Trade Hacker Facebook group at Unity Trading Group, all the on Facebook rather, all the updates that Ads has been posting and everything going on over there lately has been excellent. So kicking off and getting straight into it, into the BTC chart, I'll be the first to say that last week, yes, we were talking about 50-50 moves. I thought we were headed down. And I'm the first one to say that you were calling it much more sort of frequently than what I was, but I didn't. I thought we were headed down. So I'm the first person to say I was wrong, and glad to be humbled by that, because I think when you get ahead of yourself, sometimes you feel like you've got market X-ray vision and you can see these moves, but it's certainly not always the case. I wasn't in a trade, but was glad to be proven wrong, admittedly. So BTC, where are we at? What's happening from here? We must be getting close to a top, surely.
Yeah, it certainly looks like that. And realistically, with a move like this, with very few pullbacks, and I know we did get a very brief area of somewhat of a pullback, which actually fell short of the demand level that we were speaking about yesterday on the video. So with a move like this, very frequent pullbacks, is there another push in it? Quite possibly that could be the case, that there might be another push in it. We were speaking about 12k moves up to the top of this level of supply here, which is on a very, very, that was terrible, very nice pivot point up the top here. That could be the play. Honestly, it could be the play. We could see that that move happening over the next little bit. However, we are quite oversold now. We are making a little bit of bearish divergence on, the RSI, somewhat the CCI and Steamroller also. The only way I can see this going to that 12K level, getting that last little bit out of this volume that we're seeing, is if we get some more upside potential, and it will come in bursts. It'll probably come, in the form of one solid candle, like we've seen over the last 3 pushes since, a couple of days ago, since the 8th of October. There you go. For the last couple of days, we've been hanging around like this. So what I'm saying is what I said yesterday. I said this needs a pullback, because we're quite overbought. Obviously held true by Steamroller, held true by CCI, RSI, and could this go higher? It could. FOMO can do ridiculous things. So I'm expecting a pullback, but it's not really necessary in the way this market usually works in a violent uptrend. Ty.
Yeah, and a couple of things I've sort of been looking at more so on the daily is how close to overextended we are. Looking at in terms of steamroll, and some of our oscillators there are getting to the point now where they are seemingly a little bit sort of exhausted. Yes, we did push through this demand zone here pretty convincingly, admittedly. So, looking at that next level above and the structure that we have there to the left, a push up to that 12K region could certainly be on the cards, and I think it would potentially still satisfy some of the moves that we still have available to us from a steamroller standpoint. Although looking at our CCI and our RSI, we are beginning to push down, but by no means outside of these parallel channels as of yet. One thing that I was a little bit sort of cautious of, I suppose, is and as you sort of said, is a pullback to this sort of this area here and back down towards this sort of intermediate demand zone. I think would certainly be on the cards if we can't break and hold above this 61 level, being that sort of, let's say 11.5. I think that's going to sort of be the push pull point for BTC. If we can break and close above 11.5, then I certainly think that this upper supply would be on the cards. If not, even again looking at the structure that we had to the left, it's not a hell of a lot holding that back up, and then a retest of this 50 fib line I think could very well be on the cards. But one thing that I have been sort of looking at, I suppose, from this sort of perspective, and although it's not, it depends on how you sort of want to look at it. It does look a little bit like a broadening ascending wedge. So it certainly could be something like this, where we continue moving back up again if we can't hold this 50 fib line. But that's sort of what I'm looking at the moment. I'm not really in too many active trades. I am interested, although if we're getting to a point now where some of these alts are starting to interest me a little bit, and they haven't interested me so much before. We'll have a look at Theta in a moment as well. That's been on a really nice uptrend. BNB is another one that I'm looking at as well. So in an ideal world, I'd really like BTC to sort of sit in this range for a little bit, maybe cool off, trend sideways, and let some of these alts flourish, which would be nice. And again, when I talk about alts sort of having moves, that doesn't mean any sort of alt season by any means. But in my opinion, I think if you start watching closely, some of these lower caps may start to pop, more so followed by these mid caps, and then maybe some of the high caps, more so like ADA, BNB, Theta, as I mentioned a moment ago. But yeah, that's sort of where I'm sitting at the moment. This 61 fib and these 50 fib are going to be the two most important levels, I think, which is right inside this demand zone that we're sitting at right now, Ads.
I just want to put this to you for one moment, and I want to know what you think about this. Let me go to a clean chart, right? Let me delete everything and stay on the daily time frame, because this is going to give us the best representation of data, obviously, all of our indicators, everything like that. And let me just draw this in for you, and let me see what you think of it. Parallel channel, so I'm going to draw in a level of supply. This is the main pivot point for the daily, and those of you could probably see that already. The only thing that concerns me with the level that we're at right now in the way of a daily time frame is that we have identified a level on the 4 hour where we're sitting at around this 12K, where we're top of this pivot point here. However, the thing that I have failed to mention in the Discord so far is this level of supply that we're sitting on the daily, where we have been rejected quite severely so far. Whether or not this means anything, whether or not this is the area that they're shooting for, or are they shooting for the supply up the top here on the 4 hour, is another thing. But this is something to keep in mind also, where obviously being a daily level of supply, it is the most significant. And if we come back down and we use this daily time frame to draw in our Fibonacci area, if I can actually find where Fibonacci is, here it is. That was a bit embarrassing. If we look at where our fib levels are, our key fib levels, is that we have some levels, especially the 38.2 is what I can see primarily being the one that we respect. But some of these levels are something we can look at also, where if we start to get a substantial pullback in the way of what Steamroller is saying that we might get over the next couple of days in the daily time frame, we might come back down and retest this 11.3 and even this 11K mark before we see some more substantial upside. That's going on the 4 hour time frame. That's a grain of salt. Don't take this as gospel, but very interesting to see that being respected on a daily time frame. And I don't like the size of this level anyway, but if I did nip it up to make it a bit more bit better there in terms of sizing, being a daily time frame, that's also very convincing, Ty.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing we've got to be notable of as well, I don't think it's been filled as of yet, is that CME gap that we have. I think it's back down at around, is it between sort of 11.1 and 11.36 or so? I think we've got an indicator for that, which is our CM. It's called the Gap-O-Matic, which I think we do have. Yeah. So there's our gap sitting there at the moment, which is still looking to be filled. So we need to be mindful of that filling as well. Interesting that we still haven't had many other gap fills down below at that 9.6 sort of region. So I think that would lead me to believe that that this one would probably more likely than not be looking to get filled in the next maybe 24 to 48 hours. Maybe around that sort of Thursday volatility that we see, we might start seeing some wickage.
If we see that gap being filled on the 11.1 to 11.3-ish, or 11.3 to 11.1, if we put that in there, 11.1 to 11.3, something like that, on the CME, was that correct? So 11.180 to 11.3. Yeah, that's pretty much it there. It looks like it got filled on this Bitfinex chart, but whether or not that correlates anything to the CME, and whether or not if we do see that filled more substantially on the CME, will that drive this further down? So the prices aren't they're not up to date in the way of, we did have some volatility on the normal charts, this being the Bitfinex one. If we go back to the Bitstamp one, it's a little bit less in the way of how much we ate through that. However, I reckon if we do see that CME gap filled, we're coming back down to here at 11.1, even 10.9. We'll see the main pairs get to.
All right, let's get into F and see what's happening with my favorite altcoin.
Okay, so F is back up to where we actually started our descent from, this daily level of supply, if you're wondering why it's so big. But we are seeing this area now, and looking like a higher high in the way of market structure. If we, talking about this area to the left here, definitely a higher high in comparison to the market structure just previous. So it's interesting because we are at a level of quite overbought in the way of Steamroller. Of course, we are getting that dot now, and we are quite exhausted on this trend. And looking at CCI, RSI, we're seeing the same sort of trend continue. Honestly, if we don't see this continue over the next couple of days, in the way of probably even the next 24 hours, I would say we'd probably know by the time we record tomorrow night's video on Wednesday night, if we're going to continue or not. But we need to see this curve back up and make another higher high to continue. The only thing that I could see happening right now is if we're taking, steamroller and a lot of these indicators for gospel as I clean the chart up, I'd be looking at a decent pullback in the way of, coming back down to around this 366 alongside that, and then alongside that, if we're looking at some of the levels, the key levels on this 4-hour time frame as we eat up this level of supply. And it's not eaten up the whole way. There is still a fair amount of sellers or fair amount of short positions that could be taken at this 390 to about this 400 level, 400 being that key round number, key psychological round number that we could always count on. So, pending more information, honestly, with this level of volume coming in, over the last couple of candles, over the last little bit, it's just trending back to the mean of where the volume has been in the past. So, honestly, it does need a pullback in the way of the market structure and how we've moved, in this isolated pump, if you could call it that, from 335 to around 395, 396. So we could probably all agree it does need a little bit of a pullback in the way of the fibs possibly, lining up nicely with our level of demand there at the 50, and of course 38 just above that with this liquidity to the left. So it's going to be an interesting one. 38's probably looking good, honestly.
Yeah, those pretty much the levels that I have drawn up as well. That 398.20 or that 398 level that we've had drawn in for such a long time was almost tapped. Looking at the Bitfinex chart, we got up to that wick led us to about 395 or 396 before this little pullback that we've had. So yeah, 378 is where I'd probably like to see this hold. Otherwise, I think we might head back down towards that maybe low 370s, if not the sort of mid 360s or the low sort of 360s, which I think would still be healthy for this particular uptrend. Looking at the daily, we've still got a bit of room to move. That 398 level again, or I guess this sort of 395 level, let's say, has proven to be some pretty hefty resistance in the past. If we look back towards those daily candles that we had on sort of the 18th of September, again back around the sort of the early 13th of September, and again on the 5th of September. But prior to that, looking at the sort of the latest move we had before the bigger moves up on around the sort of the 27th of August, that this level where we are now, this 384 level, has been significant in the past as a level of support. So I really want to see, like I said, three sort of 78 hold if we're going to continue this upwards move. This, looking at steamroller on the daily, again, similar to BTC, there's still a little bit more room for movement on ETH on the daily than what there was with BTC. Some of our oscillators are starting to turn down a little bit, but again, with the likes of something like RSI, there is still some room to move to the upside. So I think even if we did pull back that sort of low 370s level, I'm just going to clear my screen up because I've got a bunch of shit on it. That low sort of 370s level where ads has got that support zone, and that 38 could certainly still be an area on the cards for a hold where we might continue back up towards that sort of 398, 400 level if we can hold there.
Yeah. Oh, look, the market structure is still positive in the grand scheme of things, and that holds true with BTC as well. Like where we are making higher highs and we are making lower highs, and the same holds true now. We are making a higher high, and if we do hold this 23.6 and continue up, that would be an uptrend continuation. Otherwise, look, if we come all the way back down to this 38.2 and even the top of the 50 in the way of this level of demand, we can also say that that's a lower high and still expect some more upwards momentum. It's just in the way of our 4-hour time frame indicators that we are due for a little bit more of a substantial pullback than we've had over the last couple of days. So that's what we're really getting at. That's all.
All right, so a couple of alts I want to have a look at while we're on the alt topic discussion was BNB.
BNB, there we are.
So looking at BNB on the 4 hour, you can see it's had a pretty significant point here. I think if we can hold this level of where we are now, even with a slight pullback, I still think that BNB is looking pretty positive, at least on the 4 hour steamroller, absolutely nailing that move just here that we can see on Steamroller. Called that absolutely perfectly, as did the last one that was drawn back down here on in sort of late September. So certainly something to be noted on Steamroller when it comes to BNB is the indications that it's giving us, and looking at it, I really would like to see it sort of hold this area. Oh, hang on, where we are now. I think even if we were to sort of hold back down here, I still think is a good area to see a potential bounce and a little bit of support before a move back up. When we see BTC having good moves, BNB is often not far behind it, as are some of the other majors like ADA, which is having a little bit of a move at the moment. The BTC pair, and you can see Ion not far behind it as well. Just, we're not going to look at Ion, but one thing that I want to share is that when Ion has a move, Ion, Algo, and Atom tend to mimic each other. So if Ion has a go, I'd be looking at Algo and Atom shortly behind that to let it have a move. But Ads, what are your thoughts on BNB at the moment?
BNB on the 4 hour time frame reaching somewhere that I would expect a little bit of a pullback, not substantial, however, in the way of coming all the way back down here. But I think you're right. I think if we can hold this level around here-ish, and if I draw in my Fibonacci, trust the old Fibonacci, trusty Leo, we can see we're at the 23.6. It would be nice and healthy for the market structure to come back down to the 38.2. And maybe we can get something like that to continue it up and just get a little bit of a bowl happening before we move up to that major level here. It is a pause in the market, but it's quite sharp when we saw that descent in later September. So I'd be shooting for around this area here, which would be that 28837. So 28,800 sats is where I would put BNB for this move, if we can sustain this higher high which we've made on this time frame.
All right, and one other alt that I want to have a quick look at that has been doing really nice things during all of this BTC stuff is Theta.
Theta doing nicely to hold its ground there, Ty.
Yeah, and a significant amount of volume coming into that over the last couple of days. Looking at the trading view, or the trading room indicator, looking at the volume scanner on the last. Just want to have a quick look here. Where was it? Theta over the last little bit, seeing about a 10% more volume in the last 24 hours than it's seen in the last few days. And beyond that, it's one of the more favorable looking alts at the moment over the last 7 days, almost 2,000 BTC traded. And for what it is, it's one that I tend to watch for when BTC settles down a little bit. Theta seems to be one of these ones that can have really quick parabolic moves. And looking at the 4 hour time frame and steamroll and where we are now, I think a move potentially up towards that top supply zone would be likely on the cards. And then, I want to see a bit of a break above this, maybe something like this, perhaps, where we get a move back up, a retest, and then a move back up towards that more higher quality sort of supply zone. That's what I'd like to see on Theta. But when Theta moves around these sort of conditions, it moves quite quick. So I think it would be one to watch. I've looked at it more times than I can count and gone, fuck, I wish I had bought a position in Theta before it had absolutely mooned.
Nice easy one to find in the way of levels of demand there. We've had 2 retests in the past, a nice third touch there, which is quite good, and we'll probably see this 9.62% move play out from demand to supply. And then, pending that, if we do get that pullback and move up, that's a 16% move all in all if you hold on the whole way. Very nice and easy to pick or to get these bottom orders in the way of drawing these supplies and demands where you've got substantial structure to the left to look at to gauge the size of your zones there. So I found that quite easily, and you should too if you're using supply and demand. So yeah, good one, bro.
Have a look at theta on the daily.
On the daily, okay. On the
Zoom
daily,
out a bit. Yeah, and that's, I was kind of looking at this a little bit. So that would sort of line up well with that demand zone that you've got drawn in there, and potentially a move from here and a retest and a continuation upwards. You can see it's been in a pretty healthy uptrend for quite a long time now.
if we go off the line chart, just to give us a bit of a averaged out level, I think we've still got a fair bit of room in the way of that uptrend there. I think that looks like a more substantial and steady uptrend than a sharper one if we try and accommodate for these as well. But yeah, all in all, it looks to be okay. Falling wedge at the moment. That's a nice falling wedge in the way of daily market structure. So yeah, we could get that 16% move after all up to the top of there.
Easy done. All right, we'll continue sharing some more alts as they present in the next week or two, hopefully as well. Let's get into the reg market stuff, Ads, unless you want to look at anything else.
No, I think we're right to go on to the reg stuff. So, spoke about the DXY yesterday, and obviously being a regulated market, this is not financial advice, just the ideas and opinions of Team UTG. Seek your own financial advice if need be. Moving on to the DXY though. Excuse me. We were looking at this US dollar index last night, and we were, observing how we could see it potentially coming back up to this 93.5. That hasn't changed in my opinion at the moment. We are making some ground above this 78, holding this point right now. So waiting for some more volume to come in over the next couple of hours, tonight into tomorrow, to see if this will continue. Steamroller giving us that bottom signal, obviously very oversold there. So I could probably expect this to play out in the way of that 93.51 and possibly see that RSI come up to that median 50 area as well before, giving us that direction. So obviously, if you haven't used the 50 level on RSI, if something's quite bearish, it usually tends to stay below the 50, and if we're quite bullish, it usually tends to stay above the 50, using it as either support or resistance, depending on the direction. So we're looking at that RSI, that 50 RSI, to give us that resistance area there. And more than likely, if we do see that happen, we could see this come up to this, back up to this 61.8 area thereabouts, coming up to this liquidity just to the left here. So that's looking okay at the moment for the DXY, waiting for some volume to come in. Looking at gold, we'll go a little bit further than we usually do on every other day. And if I get this cleared away. So we've been looking at these levels of fibs for quite some time now, and I think this is, the 786. This has been respected the entire way up and down. So that's why I've left it in there, and you could probably see why it's been respected pretty much to the dollar the entire way up and the entire way down. So we're trending above it at the moment, giving us that little bit of a pullback that we're expecting on gold. If the DXY does give us that relief rally up to that 61.8 fibs, we could probably expect gold to come down a little further, respecting some of the Fibonacci levels that we've got for this retracement area in the way of swing low to swing high. And if I draw that correctly, one sec. If I draw that in correctly, there we go. The 38.2 is probably where I would put gold for that retracement, in the way of, we've got a lot of liquidity sitting to the left-hand side. That was terrible. Sitting to the left-hand side here to really give us that confirmation on where it could possibly head to. So we've bounced off at once. If the DXY does continue to the upside, we can expect gold to come down and retest that 38.2 at least over the next little bit. If we're looking at silver, silver's in a very similar position. However, we've got a little bit of a different fib structure now. If I get rid of that, silver on its way down to that 38.2 also. So exactly the same sort of scenario happening on silver, and that 38.2 lines up quite nicely with those tops there, those resistance tops on the left-hand side. But one that I really wanted to look at, and I'm looking at this quite often now in the way of in our updates on a Tuesday and a Thursday, is the All Ords. So we are testing finally this level of supply, and if I draw it in a little bit nicer there, we are sitting right on the cusp of this 6,400 level here on the All Ords. This is quite substantial in my opinion, in the way of the entire stock market in general, because in a recession you expect this stock market to come down. So we are seeing this stimulus money, this surplus money coming into this market and pushing it ever higher, because they don't want obviously the more we draw out of this market, the more flooded with dollars we will be. So we are pushing this stock even higher and higher, and you can see that reflected in a lot of the financial stocks that we've been looking at as of late as well in the Discord. At the moment though, in the All Ords, it's going to be an interesting one when we see if we can get past this level of supply. It is quite substantial, it is quite big. We are looking at the target the area of interest to be all the way up to the 65.42 level. I will be fairly impressed if we get there, honestly, because we have had such a hard time getting to there as of late. So if we can move past this and move through it and start to make a recovery back to where we fell, I'd be impressed. Am I expecting it to happen? Well, not immediately. Not immediately. If we're looking at the 4-hour time frame, we are quite overbought now, and we do expect some sort of substantial pullback in the way of fairly bullish momentum on this time frame. So coming back down to this level here, if we just draw a very short-term level in there like that, for example, to line up that 23.663 13 would where I'll be putting that level of pullback, if not all the way back down to this 38.2, this 62.46. So not a bad recovery so far for the All Ords, but that's all I really wanted to have a look at, Ty.
I think that's a good way to conclude tonight's market scan.
Absolutely.
Easy done, guys. All right, thank you so much for joining us. For more on this, Ads the man himself is posting daily updates like this every single day. Hit that subscribe button and come over and join us at unitytradinggroup.com, or just follow us on YouTube. 99% of what we share and produce is sent over to the YouTube. So help us out, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you for the next market update.
Absolutely. We'll catch you then.
Bye.